Good morning, YouTube. Welcome to the Reptile Barn. I have a discussion I want to have. Pretty much just some tips for people who want to sell ball pythons. So the reason I'm doing this is I've seen a couple of people, in fact, several people, some of whom I know in the last couple months, who have completely abandoned their ball python breeding dreams because either they couldn't or they thought they couldn't sell the babies they were producing. So I want to address this because there's a few things that happen, and most of them are avoidable, right? So on the one hand, it takes an incredible amount of work and very targeted work to sell your, the animals you produce. But people don't understand that because these are generally reptile enthusiasts who want to start a reptile business. So when they jump into all their research beforehand, because these are good people. I'm not talking about people who just want to make a quick buck. These are people who, they've put a lot of thought into it. Well, when they go to do their research, they end up mostly or exclusively researching reptiles, not business. And so they get really good breeding stock, they raise it up, they're keeping it properly, feeding it, cleaning it, everything is excellent. They breed them correctly, they produce eggs, they get the eggs to hatch, they have their babies well started, and then they can't sell their babies because everything they know how to do is reptile, not business. And they get so frustrated, and they're like, well, the hobby must be crashing. The ball python market is crashing. Or they say things like, people are only buying from major breeders. They're not gonna. There's no room for the little guys anymore. You can't break into the professional breeder status. These things are not true, but I can see why people would think that, right? So marketing your ball pythons, and this holds true for all reptiles and exotics and animals in general, but we're talking specifically today about ball python breeding, is at least, in fact, I would say more work than actually producing your babies. And it is an extraordinary amount of work to correctly breed ball pythons. So I'm not trying to say this part's easy and then all the hard work starts when you're marketing them. That's not the case. It's all a lot of work. But in our experience, especially as a newcomer, it is more work to market and sell your animals than to produce them in the first place. And people don't want that. Generally, people are reptile lovers. They're not business lovers. They just want to turn their reptile passion into a business that is profitable, but they don't realize that that requires you to do a whole bunch of businessy things that aren't fun for most of us reptile people, right? And so they'll say, well, I don't have time to, sit on 19 different social media accounts and constantly push my animals. And I'm like, well, then you don't have time to do business, right? And this sounds harsh, but normal Americans are watching 4 hours of TV a day. Don't tell me you don't have time. That's not true, right? It's just that you don't want to spend your time going through a zillion Facebook groups and posting constantly to Instagram and following all these people on YouTube and commenting and responding and putting your own content out there. That's marketing animals in the modern world. That's how it works. If you don't want to do that, then just stay as a hobbyist. Keep your pets and love them and enjoy them like you always have. If you want to do it as a business where you're making real money, you have to market, and that includes social media. That stinks. I hate social media, but we do it. Not as good as we should, but we do it. The other thing, you need to become present in your local reptile scene. Here's my first tip of the video. Generally speaking, it will be easier to sell your cheaper animals. They're not less quality, but less financially expensive animals locally. It will be easier to sell your really expensive animals online, shipping to somebody around the country, right? And there's a reason for that. I think of the ball python world and really all of reptiles in tiers. okay? Not T-E-A-R-S, but T-I-E-R-S. Tiers, right? So the very first level would be someone who's getting an animal as a pet, right? They've admired snakes or lizards or whatever. They want to get a pet, so they get one, right? Primarily, they're gonna go do that at Petco or PetSmart or one of those places. Unfortunately, that's the reality of it. Not all of them. A lot of them will have found Snake Discovery, Clint's Reptiles, BHB online because of YouTube, and they'll maybe get their first pet from them, right? Well, and that's, in my opinion, better than going to one of the big box pet stores. But regardless, that's where they're probably going to be exposed to, unless you have put your name out there in your local market. And I'm talking really local, your neighborhoods, your very, very localized market. Because even someone like us, we live in Anchorage, Alaska. We don't have a giant market, right? We don't even have a medium market. We have a little tiny market. And yet, there's still 300,000 people in our city with a couple of other little cities around. That's plenty of people who to provide a market for our entry-level pet animals, right? We produce a pastel, a banana, an albino. There's people all around us who want that, and they're going to go to Petco unless they hear about us. So we had better be getting our name out there. Local Facebook groups are huge. We have spent enormous time that at first felt so unfruitful, but it hasn't been, getting to know the local pet stores. Even though we don't buy animals there, we still buy supplies there sometimes. And now all of their managers and all of their people who work with their reptiles there, they know us. So when someone comes in and they're like, hey, I want a banana ball python, and they don't have any, they tell them about us. We get a staggering number of referrals from local pet stores. They ought to be competition, but they're not. We're friends with them. We've talked to them a ton. We have built up that relationship to where we get referrals from them. And that's huge for us. We organized an expo. It wasn't a huge expo. It wasn't even a medium-sized expo, but there were 1,000 people there, and there were probably 30,000 people who heard about it when we were marketing it. That was huge for us. Tons of people now know about us because of that expo. Before the pandemic, we were doing birthday parties, Boy Scouts, all sorts of little small events that any one of them is not going to produce dozens of sales for us, but it's going to have dozens more people locally who know who we are. The other thing you got to do, here's kind of what I would consider my second tip of this video. You must open your mouth. What do I mean by that? You have to promote yourself. You have to talk about yourself to everyone. Never, ever judge when you see somebody. That person will never be a customer. I'm not going to even bring up that I do snakes. They're just going to think I'm weird. You have no idea. It might be a suburban soccer mom becomes a customer. It might be the emo kid that lives down the street. It doesn't matter who they are, unless you're kind of that nasty judgmental person who just dislikes certain types of people, then I guess don't talk to them. But if you are a normal person who can have a regular conversation with pretty much anybody, talk about your reptiles. They might be a reptile person, or they might become a reptile person and remember you. Another huge source of sales for us are people who heard about us years ago, and now they're getting into reptiles, and they're like, we talked to those people who are local breeders. I don't want to buy online. I'd rather buy local. And I remember that the reptile barn is here in Anchorage. We're going to buy from them. And they come to us, they're like, you probably don't remember me. We talked like 4 years ago, but I'm ready to get a snake. And we're like, come on and grab a snake. And it's awesome that these people who, when we talked to them, we had no notion that would ever become a sale. We were just talking, and we talked about our snakes and our business, and now they're a customer. So that's huge. We've done a separate video on this next topic, so I'm not going to recap everything, but this is a tip for those of you who haven't seen it. Excellent, and I'm talking above and beyond customer service. The biggest benefits of that are, one, you're a good person and so you don't feel terrible about yourself, and two, repeat customers. Sorry, there's a fly buzzing around me. I apologize. Hashtag Mike Pence. But we try to treat our customers so well, and it produces repeat customers for us. So you have people who, I'm going to go back to the tier system that I was talking about. They were an entry level, they wanted a pet. Well, now it's 3-4 years later, their snake's getting bigger, and they're like, oh, I could totally handle one more snake. But I really wanted this cooler morph that I saw. And so they come back to us, and instead of, I have $100 budget. We don't really have very many $100 snakes. Now they're saying, I can spend $500. They can get something really cool for $500. And now they're this repeat customer. And as many of you guys know, reptiles are addictive. They're going to be back. We have customers who've spent thousands and thousands and thousands of, maybe there might be a few who've spent tens of thousands of dollars with us. We don't have any $10,000 snakes here. But these people are becoming friends and loyal customers because we're good to them. We take care of them. When people buy, repeatedly from us, sometimes we give multiple animal discounts. And it's not all about the money, but this video is talking about how to sell snakes, so the money is important, right? So, for my final little spiel here, I'm going to give one more tip and then talk about one more subject. The last tip is pictures. This is huge. I probably should have talked about it first. Take as excellent, high-quality pictures as you possibly can. More than one of every snake you want to sell, okay? So if you produce a clutch of pieds, your whole process should have been, before you ever got your eggs, you should have been posting to Facebook and Instagram at least, and your website if you have one, maybe YouTube if you have one, as many places as you possibly can. Hey, I got these locks from my whatever pied male, my whatever pied female. People should already know that this lock happened. When you get eggs, you should be posting this. When your eggs hatch, you should be posting this. All over the place, right? You should go to the Pied Ball Python Facebook group. There are specific groups for most of the big morphs. Go there, post about your animals, get people excited about what you just produced. You don't have snakes ready for sale yet. They've never shed, they've never eaten. You can't sell them yet, but hundreds of people should already know that these baby animals exist, right? Your pictures are everything, because 99% of these people, 100% of these people during a pandemic are not coming to your house or your facility to see these snakes in person. The snake to those potential customers is a picture or a series of pictures. They better be good ones. You see it with your naked eye and you're like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. You snap a crappy picture with your crappy cell phone with a crack down the middle, and you stick it up on Facebook in one place, and you're like, no one bought my snakes. Well, no kidding, no one bought your snakes. There's a gazillion pictures of ball pythons, of pied ball pythons on Facebook. You didn't do the footwork. You didn't do the work. Now, be honest with yourself. If you can't give up a couple hours of Netflix a day to market your snakes, you don't want this enough. Just stay as a hobbyist. That's okay. I'm not talking down to you. I'm just saying, don't pretend like there's this massive problem in the market. There's a problem in your marketing, right? And that's okay. If you just are like, that's going to make me miserable, I don't want to do that, then don't do that. Have pets. That's awesome. We have plenty of reptiles that are just our pets, that we love just as much as the ones that make us money. Because we don't want to breed tortoises, but we have tortoises. You know what I'm saying? So that's okay. I don't look down on myself for being like, I just don't have it in me to breed these tortoises. That's okay. That's fabulous, in fact. So that's kind of where I'm going with this, is the marketing is so much work, and it's kind of unpleasant work for a lot of reptile enthusiast-minded people. If that's not something that you're going to enjoy, or that's going to sap your joy of the animals themselves, then maybe you shouldn't be a breeder. If you do want to be a breeder, if you're certain of that, and you're like, I can do the work, you're going to have to give up some of the things you spend time on in your life. I recommend television because I don't really like TV. But find something. Don't neglect your family in order to sell your snakes is what I'm saying. You know, pick something that's less important, and you're gonna have to. I promise you. Major breeders who are successful, they gave up something to get there. Many of them, it was hobbies, it was just downtime. They work hard, and they're living their dream life, right? So it is worth it for those of you who that dream is bigger than your dream of watching Tiger King or whatever, you know, like. But if that's what you want to spend your time on, is taking incredible pictures, marketing them constantly, sharing with everybody that you possibly can, then you will sell your snakes. Guaranteed. You will absolutely sell your snakes. It might take a while. You have to be patient. It's okay if you list a snake and it's listed for 4 months before it sells. That's fine. It won't always happen, but if it does, that's okay. You have to be patient and believe that they will sell. If you project this air of, oh, they're never going to sell, the market's broken. Well, yours aren't going to sell then, but mine are, because I think the market's strong and vibrant, and that's how I talk. So that's how our results go, right? And 5, 6 years ago when we got started, it took longer. It was harder. No one knew about us yet. Our social media didn't have as many followers, but we still sold our snakes. Now we sell a lot faster because we've done the work, right? And we're going to continue to do the work so that it gets easier and easier to sell the animals. And then we can spend more of our time on the animals themselves, right? So that's all I've got for you today. I hope that was helpful. I always want to inspire the people who want to move up a tier, you know, go from hobbyist to small breeder to major breeder to, you know, superstar breeder. Going from $100 animals to $1,000 animals to $10,000 animals, if that's what you want, you can do that. Absolutely, without question, you can do that. So thank you guys so much for watching and for all your support. Until next time, we're the Reptile Barn.